All right, let's read another essay from Dr. Johnson. Today, we'll read Rambler number 40 for Saturday, August 4th, 1750. The title of this one, as I very carefully open these 200-year-old pages, is The Difficulty of Giving Advice Without Offending. Here we go. There's a bit of Latin here. Let's try it. Wish me luck. Nunc dicutit cur ego amicum offendum in nugis. Nugis? Ha is a question mark. Ha nagae sere ducent in mala derisum semel. No idea, and I'm sure I butchered that so utterly. Here's a bit in English. Another quote from this one's from Francis. Nor say, for trifles, why should I displease the man I love? For trifles such as these, to serious mischiefs lead the man I love, if once the flatterer's ridicule he prove. It has been remarked that authors are genus irascible, a generation very easily put out of temper, and that they seldom fail of giving proofs of their irascibility upon the slightest attack of criticism, or the most gentle or modest offer of advice and information. Writers, being best acquainted with one another, have represented this character as prevailing among men of literature, which a more extensive view of the world would have shown to be diffused through all human nature, to mingle itself with every species of ambition and desire of praise, and to discover its effects with greater or less restraint, and under disguises more or less artful, in all places and all conditions. The quarrels of writers, indeed, are more observed because they necessarily appeal to the decision of the public. Their enmity are incited by applauses from their parties, and prolonged by treacherous encouragement for general diversion. And when the contest happens to rise high between men of genius and learning, its memory is continued for the same reason as its vehemence was at once promoted, because it gratifies the malevolence of curiosity of readers, and relieves the vacancies of life with amusement and laughter. Wow! The personal disputes, therefore, of rivals in wit are sometimes transmitted to posterity, when the grudges and heart-burnings of men less conspicuous, though carried on with equal bitterness, and productive of greater evils, are exposed to the knowledge of those only whom they nearly affect, and suffered to pass off and be forgotten among common and casual transactions. The resentment which the discovery of a fault or folly produces must bear a certain proportion to our pride, and will regularly be more acrimonious as pride is more immediately the principle of action. In whatever, therefore, we wish or imagine ourselves to excel, we shall always be displeased to have our claims to reputation disputed, and more displeased if the accomplishment be such as can expect reputation only for its reward. For this reason, it is common to find men to break out into rage at any insinuations to the disadvantage of their wit, who have borne with great patience reflections on their morals, and of women it has been always known that no censure wounds. Oh, let me finish that a little better. For this reason, I'll try that again. For this reason, it is common to find men to break out into rage at any insinuations to the disadvantage of their wit, who have borne with great patience reflections on their morals. And of women, it has always been known that no censure wounds so deeply or rankles so long as that which charges them with want of beauty. As men frequently fill their imaginations with trifling pursuits, and please themselves most with things of small importance, I have often known very severe and lasting malevolence excited by unlucky censures, which would have fallen without any effect, had they not happened to wound a part remarkably tender. Gustulus, who valued himself upon the nicety of his palate, disinherited his eldest son for telling him that the wine which he was then commending was the same which he had sent away the day before, not fit to be drunk. Rudi Proculus withdrew his kindness from a nephew whom he had always considered as the most promising genius of the age, for happening to praise in his presence the graceful horsemanship of Marsyas. And Fortunio, when he was privy councillor, procured a clerk to be dismissed from one of the public offices in which he was eminent for his skill and assiduity, because he had been heard to say that there was another man in the kingdom on whose skill at billiards he would lay his money against Fortunio's. Felicia and Floretta had been bred up in one house, and shared all the pleasures and endearments of infancy together. They entered upon life at the same time, and continued their confidence and friendship, consulted each other in every change of their dress and every admission of a new lover, though every diversion more entertaining whenever it happened that both were present, and when separated justified the conduct and celebrated the excellencies of one another. Such was their intimacy, and such their felicity, till a birth night approached, when Floretta took one morning an opportunity, as they were consulting upon new clothes, to advise her friend not to dance at the ball, and informed her that her performance the year before had not answered the expectation which her other accomplishments had raised. Felicia commended her sincerely, and thanked her for the caution, but told her that she danced to please herself, and was in very little concern what the men might take the liberty of saying, but that if her appearance gave her dear Floretta any uneasiness, she would stay away. Floretta had now nothing left but to make new protestations of sincerity and affection, with which Felicia was so well satisfied that they parted with more than usual fondness. They still continued to visit, with this only difference that Felicia was more punctual than before, and often declared how high a value she put upon sincerity, how much she thought that goodness to be esteemed which would venture to admonish a friend of an error, and with what gratitude advice was to be received, even when it might happen to proceed from mistake. In a few months, Felicia, with great seriousness, told Floretta that though her beauty was such as gave charms to whatever she did, and her qualifications so extensive that she could not fail of excellence in any attempt, yet she thought herself obliged by the duty of friendship to inform her that if ever she betrayed want of judgment, it was by too frequent compliance with solicitations to sing, for that her manner was somewhat ungraceful, and her voice had no great compass. "It is true," says Floretta, "when I sung 3 nights ago at Lady Sprightly's, I was hoarse with a cold, but I sing for my own satisfaction, and am not in the least pain whether I am liked. However, my dear Felicia's kindness is not the less, and I shall always think myself happy in so true a friend." From this time they never saw each other without mutual professions of esteem and declarations of confidence, but went soon after into the country to visit their relations. When they came back, they were prevailed on, by the importunity of new acquaintances, to take lodgings in different parts of town, and had frequent occasion, when they met, to bewail the distance at which they were placed, and the uncertainty which each experienced of finding the other at home. Thus are the fondest and firmest friendships dissolved by such openness and sincerity as interrupt our enjoyment of our own approbation, or recall us to the remembrance of those failings which we are more willing to indulge than to correct. It is by no means necessary to imagine that he who is offended at advice was ignorant of the fault, and resents the admonition as a false charge. For perhaps it is most natural to be enraged when there is the strongest conviction of our own guilt, while we can easily defend our character we are no more disturbed at an accusation than we are alarmed by an enemy who we are sure to conquer, and whose attack, therefore, will bring us honor without danger. But when a man feels the reprehension of a friend seconded by his own heart, he is easily heated into resentment and revenge, either because he hoped that the fault of which he was conscious had escaped the notice of others, or that his friend had looked upon it with tenderness and extenuation, and excused it for the sake of his other virtues, or had considered him as too wise to need advice, or too delicate to be shocked with reproach, or because we cannot feel without pain those reflections roused which we have been endeavoring to lay asleep. And when pain has produced anger, who would not willingly believe that it ought to be discharged on others rather than on himself? The resentment produced by sincerity, whatever be its immediate cause, is so certain and generally so keen that very few have magnanimity sufficient for the practice of a duty which above most others exposes its votaries to hardships and persecutions. Yet friendship without it is of very little value, since the great use of so close an intimacy is that our virtues may be guarded and encouraged, and our vices repressed in their first appearance by timely detection and salutary remonstrances. It is decreed by Providence that nothing truly valuable shall be obtained in our present state, but with difficulty and danger. He that hopes for the advantage which is to be gained from unrestrained communication must sometimes hazard, by unpleasing truths, that friendship which he aspires to merit. The chief rule to be observed in the exercise of this dangerous office is to preserve it pure from all mixture of interest or vanity, to forbear admonition or reproof when our consciences tell us that they are incited or by the hopes of reforming faults, but the desire of showing our discernment or gratitude, or gratifying our own pride by the mortification of another. It is not indeed certain that the most refined caution will find a proper time for bringing a man to the knowledge of his own failings, or the most zealous benevolence reconcile him to that judgment by which they are detected. But he who endeavors only the happiness of him whom he reproves will always have either the satisfaction of obtaining or deserving kindness. If he succeeds, he benefits his friend, and if he fails, he has at least the consciousness that he suffers for only doing well. Well, that was fun and challenging, with the dog beating at the door and the dryer starting up outside, but so is the real world, right? So we'll stop for now and let the dog in. Have a good day. Take care.